I arrived at my husband's corporate office for a meeting and saw the new female marketing director hugging him and calling him babe.
I didn't cause a scene.
Instead, with a polite smile, I delivered a single line that made my husband go limp on the spot.
William is.
This your new hospice nurse? Pushing open the glass doors of the conference room, I walked in. The click of my high heels on the marble floor echoed through the space. For a second, absolute silence reigned in the room. All eyes turned to me. I immediately spotted the trio standing at the far end of the long, mahogany table. My husband William, his business partner Christopher, and a woman in an elegant tailored suit with voluminous wavy hair. Her hand was resting on the crook of my husband's arm. Her fingers lightly brushed the sleeve of his tailored jacket. When my husband saw me, his face contorted as if he'd been struck by lightning. He froze. "Kate, why are you here?" His voice trembled. I paid him no mind. My eyes were fixed on the woman. She looked about 37 or 38. Well-groomed, exquisite makeup. A barely perceptible smile played at the corners of her lips, and the look she threw me was a clear challenge. "And who is this?" I asked with a bright smile. My tone was as light as if I were asking what we were having for lunch. Christopher, standing nearby, coughed awkwardly and rushed to do the introductions. "Catherine, this is our new VP of Marketing, Samantha Woods." Samantha let go of my husband's arm and extended her hand to me. Her smile was charming yet strictly business. "Catherine, I've heard so much about you. They recently poached me from New York. I look forward to your support in the future." I shook her hand. Her fingertips were ice cold, but her palm was slightly clammy. "Interesting, Samantha. You're so young to be a vice president." "Quite impressive," I said, smiling. "Where did you work previously?" 8 years in the marketing division of OmniP in Manhattan. Samantha replied flawlessly. I nodded and turned to my husband. William's face was as white as a sheet of printer paper. Tiny beads of sweat had formed on his forehead. His lips twitched slightly. He looked like a mouse cornered by a cat. "Will," I said, calling him by his nickname with a sweet smile. "What's wrong with your face? You look terrible. You must be working too hard lately." "No," he squeezed out. His voice seemed to scrape against his throat. I walked over to the table, casually pulled out a chair, sat down, and crossed my legs. I glanced around the conference room. The renovations were tasteful. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of downtown Chicago, right overlooking the Willis Tower. "Please continue your meeting," I said. "I was just driving by and decided to drop in." "Will mentioned last night that you had an important strategy session today." I paused, letting my gaze drift. I realized we've been married for 20 years, and I've never once sat in on a meeting in your new office.
So here I am.
I hope I'm not intruding. When I said married for 20 years, I deliberately placed a heavy emphasis on the words. The corner of Samantha's mouth twitched, but she quickly pulled her flawless corporate mask back into place. William stood there, his lips trembling. Finally, he managed. "Kate, maybe you should wait in my office. This meeting is going to run a bit long." "No need. No need." I waved my hand dismissively. "You guys work. I'll just listen in. After all, I am a major shareholder in this company. It doesn't hurt to stay informed on our daily operations."
Right.
The atmosphere in the room instantly thickened. The department heads exchanged nervous glances, their eyes darting between William and Samantha. Christopher coughed awkwardly again and pretended to study the quarterly reports in front of him. My husband's complexion was putting on a
show.
He went from pale to flush to pale again like a malfunctioning traffic light. Samantha, however, held her ground with remarkable confidence. She returned to the table, picked up a laser pointer, and addressed the room. "Let's continue then." We left off on the Q3 marketing budget. Halfway through her presentation, she suddenly stopped and looked directly at my husband. "Will, what do you think of this allocation?" The way she said well sounded so intimate, so incredibly natural, as if she had said it 1,000 times before. I noticed several people in the room drop their heads, pretending to take very intense notes in their legal pads. William flinched as if pricked by a needle. "The plan is fine," his voice cracked. "But we need to review the budget one more time." I chuckled.
I
Reached into my designer handbag, pulled out a slim vape pen, and took a slow drag, exhaling a faint cloud of vapor. "Kate, you can't vape in a Chicago high-rise," William said reflexively. "Oh, my apologies." Force of habit, I slipped it back into my bag. I noticed a custom engraved Yeti tumbler sitting right next to Samantha's hand. It read WS, Chief Executive Officer. Interesting. Very interesting. The meeting pushed forward. Samantha spoke clearly and backed her points with solid data. She was undeniably competent, but I noticed that whenever she reached a key decision point, she instinctively threw a glance at my husband. What was hidden in those glances was obvious too. Anyone with eyes. My husband sat on pins and needles the entire time. Sweat was practically rolling down his neck. His shirt collar was damp. Toward the end of the meeting, Samantha paused, walked over to my husband, leaned down, and whispered something directly into his
ear.
The gesture was so profoundly intimate. It didn't look like a boss and a subordinate. It looked like a domestic routine. I clearly saw her lips brush the shell of his ear. The room went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I picked up a glass of water, took a slow sip, swallowed deliberately, and then with a bright smile said, "Babe." My voice wasn't loud, but every syllable carried perfectly to everyone present. "Is the new VP Samantha? Is she your hospice nurse? I see. She's caring for you as intimately as if you hired her. For personal bedside assistance." Before I even finished my sentence, someone at the far end of the table couldn't hold it in and snorted immediately, slapping a hand over their mouth. William's face drained entirely. Looking like a corpse, he violently shoved his chair back and jumped up. The chair tipped over and crashed against the glass wall. "Kate, what the hell are you saying?" His voice was as shrill as a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Samantha's face completely changed, too. In a fraction of a second, her poise evaporated, replaced by a mixture of deep shame and furious anger, as if she had been stripped naked in public. "Catherine, what exactly are you implying?" Her voice was ice. "Oh, nothing special," I said with a radiant smile. "It just seems to me that you take exceptionally good care of my husband," taking his arm, whispering in his ear. "Someone who didn't know better might think you were Mrs. Woods." The words sank in like a serrated knife hitting a nerve. Samantha's face flushed a deep, angry crimson. Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but couldn't find a single word. William closed the distance between us in 3 strides and hissed, keeping his voice low.
"Kate, you've got this all wrong, Samantha."
She just what I looked up at him, my smile never wavering. "Just accidentally took your arm. Just accidentally called you babe. Just accidentally pressed her lips to your ear." The conference room descended into barely suppressed chaos. The department heads began whispering.
The
hum of voices grew. Christopher hurriedly stood up to run damage control. "Catherine, really, it's not what you think. Samantha is new to Chicago. She's still getting her bearings. William is just mentoring her, taking her under his wing." "Chris," I cut him off sharply. "Are you married?" "Yes," he stammered. "And if your wife walked into your office and saw another woman clinging to your arm and calling you babe, would she also think it was just a mentoring moment?" Chris opened his mouth, but came up empty. William's legs were practically vibrating. I could see the fabric of his slacks shaking. He braced his hands on the table. His knuckles were white. "Kate, please listen to me. It is truly not what you think." He sounded on the verge of tears. I stood up and patted his shoulder. "Babe, why are you so nervous?" "I was just joking. Samantha is such a valuable asset to the company. You have to take good care of her." I placed a heavy emphasis on care. Samantha stood at the other end of the table, drilling holes into me with her eyes. There was hatred, humiliation, and something else I couldn't quite read. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. Right at the threshold, I stopped, turned around, and looked at my husband. "By the way, Will," I said, "I actually came by to give you a heads up. Your mother is flying in from Florida this afternoon. She said she wants to come straight to the office to see you. I'll let you get back to your meeting." I turned and walked out. Behind me, I heard William's frantic footsteps.
Kate, wait.
I didn't stop walking straight to the elevator banks. Just as the doors were about to slide shut, a hand shoved between them, forcing them back open. William squeezed inside. He looked like the world was ending. "Kate, I swear to God, there is nothing going on between me and Samantha." He grabbed my arm. His words were rushed and panicky. She's just a very expressive person. She's from New York. They talk like that. She calls everyone babe. I yanked my arm out of his grip.
Oh, really? Yes.
It was a slip of the tongue. She was nervous about running her first big strategy meeting here, and she just blurted it out without thinking. Well, I interrupted him. "How long have you two been sleeping together?" His pupils shrank to pinpricks. He froze, looking like he'd grabbed a live wire. "The elevator pinged at the A professional relationship, and she calls you babe." I spun around and looked him dead in the eye.
A
Professional relationship, and she hangs off your arm. A professional relationship, and her lips are on your ear. William, how stupid do you think I am? 20 years of marriage. You think I don't know what I'm looking at? His lips quivered violently. His eyes were bloodshot. "Kate, you don't need to." I pressed the button for the parking.
garage elevator.
"What you need to do right now is figure out how you're going to explain this to your mother. She'll be at the office at 3 p.m. You have exactly 3 hours. Mom's actually coming." His voice broke completely. "Of course she is." I stepped into the garage elevator. Did you think I was joking? The door slid shut. This time he didn't try to stop them. I leaned against the stainless steel wall and let out a long, shuddering breath. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Samantha. I had no idea how she got my personal number. "Catherine, William and I are serious. We've been together for 2 years. He's wanted to leave you for a long time. He just couldn't find the right moment. Please, just let him go." I stared at the screen for 3 seconds. The corners of my mouth slowly curled upward. "Let him go, right?" I was about to type a reply when my phone buzzed again, this time from my husband. "Kate, I'm so sorry. I messed up. I'll do whatever you want. Just please, I am begging you, do not tell my mother. You know her heart condition. She won't survive the shock." I didn't reply to either of them. I tossed my phone onto the passenger seat, started the engine of my Mercedes, and pulled out of the garage. In my rear view mirror, I saw William sprinting out of the building. He stood on the curb, looking around wildly, like a lost puppy. I didn't tap the brakes. Hitting the gas, I merged into the busy Chicago traffic. The midday sun was glaring off the glass skyscrapers. I turned on the radio. A classic Fleetwood Mac song was playing. Stevie Nicks' voice was tender yet ironic. "I took my love, I took it
Down.
20 years. I thought my marriage was an impenetrable fortress. Turns out a wrecking ball went through it 2 years ago." "William, did you really think I just dropped by your office for fun today? You're so wrong. The real meeting is just getting started. Mom, your son has another woman." I drove to an upscale artisanal bakery in the West Loop and bought 3 boxes of high-end pastries. Then I went to specialty grocery picking out a basket of premium organic cherries and 2 pineapples. The store owner smiled when she saw me.
Catherine.
"Shopping early today. My mother-in-law is flying and getting her favorites ready." I paid and left. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. William had called over 10 times. I ignored every single one. Samantha sent 2 more texts. The first, "Catherine, I know you're hurting, but you can't order the heart to stop loving." The second, "I won't give up. William, what we have is true love. True love." I almost laughed out loud. A 42-year-old man and a 38-year-old woman. waxing poetic about true love. It was pathetic. I put the groceries in the trunk and drove toward the Gold Coast. After parking, I took out my phone and dialed a number. Hello, Aunt Brenda. It's Kate. Katie, I haven't heard from you in ages. How are things? Aunt Brenda's sharp, energetic voice came through the speaker. Aunt Brenda ran the largest private investigation firm in the greater Chicago area. Her husband handled the field work and she managed the clients in negotiations.
They had
Been in the business for over 20 years and had seen it all. I met her 10 years ago at a charity gala. She had helped a mutual friend catch a cheating husband, and her methods were so flawlessly brutal that all the women in our circle worshipped her. We kept in touch over coffee every few months. Aunt Brenda, I need your help.
shoot.
I need a full background check on someone. Samantha Woods, originally from New York, moved to Chicago recently. Worked in marketing at Omnicorp for 8 years. I need everything family, marital status, deep dive, financials. The more detailed, the better. There was a 2-second pause on the line. Brenda's tone shifted, becoming strictly professional and slightly cautious. Katie, does this have something to do with Will? Just run the check. Money is no object. Understood. Give me 3 days. You'll have the file faster if possible. I hung up, sitting in my car, watching the people walking past the high-end boutiques. Everyone had their own story, their own joys, their own hidden tragedies. No one walking by knew that inside this black Mercedes sat a woman who had given 20 years of her life to a marriage currently plotting an absolute hurricane. My phone buzzed again. It was my mother-in-law. Katie, sweetheart, I just boarded my flight in Fort Lauderdale. I should be landing at O'Hare around 2:30. Her voice was cheerful. Mom, I'll pick you up at arrivals.
Oh, nonsense.
Will said he's sending a company car for me. Mom, it's better if I pick you up. I have something I need to tell you. Margaret paused. Did something happen? I'll tell you when you land, I said softly. Mom, did you pack your heart medication? I did.
Don't fuss over me.
Okay, Mom. I'm going to tell you something right now.
Please don't panic. Dead.
Silence on the other end. When Margaret spoke, her voice was heavy as lead. Tell me, there's a new woman at Will's company, a vice president. They are entirely too close. Another stretch of silence. My mother-in-law, Margaret, was a brilliantly sharp woman.
So sharp that
You barely had to outline a picture for her to see the whole painting.
I understand, she said.
Her voice was terrifyingly calm. Katie, don't pick me
Up.
I'll take the company car. I want to look this little home wrecker in the eye myself and see who dared to touch my son's wife. The call ended. I lowered the phone. Suddenly, my eyes burned. 20 years. I remembered everything Margaret had done for me. When I married William, I was 22, a clueless girl from a small town in Indiana. Margaret taught me how to manage a household, how to handle high society functions, how to carry myself. When I had severe complications giving birth to my first child, she was the one who spent hours on her knees in the hospital chapel praying for me. William, you could have done anything to me, but you never should have betrayed me. And you definitely should not have betrayed your mother. At 2:30 p.m., I was sitting in the lobby of the corporate building. I didn't go upstairs. I just waited on the leather couch. The receptionist brought me a coffee. Her eyes were wide and evasive. Clearly, the rumors of what went down in the morning meeting had already swept through the cubicles. At exactly 3:00 p.m., a sleek Silvertown car pulled up. Outside, the door opened and Margaret stepped out. She was 68. In her youth, she had sold real estate, then built a massive construction supply business with her late husband. After my father-in-law died, she carried the entire empire on her shoulders, raising William and his younger brother, Kevin. This was a woman who feared absolutely nothing and had never lost a fight in her life. She wore a dark burgundy dress, her hair impeccably styled. In her hand, she gripped an expensive black leather tote, my birthday gift to her 3 years ago. She usually kept it pristine in its dust bag, but today she brought it I walked up to her. Mom, you made it. She looked at me. Her gaze was as sharp as a scalpel. Where are they? Upstairs. Let's go. Margaret didn't say a word in the elevator. Her back was perfectly straight. I stood behind her looking at her silhouette. I remembered how on my wedding day 20 years ago, she took my hands and said, "Katie, from today on, you are my daughter. If anyone ever hurts you, I will be the first one in the trenches for you." She had kept that promise for 2 decades. The elevator dinged at the 12th floor. The doors parted, and Christopher was standing right there, looking like he'd swallowed a lemon. "Margaret, so wonderful to see you." He forced a desperate smile. Margaret didn't even acknowledge him. She walked straight past him toward the executive conference room. The door was slightly ajar. Muffled voices drifted out into the hallway. It was William, and he sounded frantic. "I told you 100 times to be careful when she's around." How the hell did you think she'd react to that stunt you pulled this morning? Then came Samantha's voice thick with tears. "I'm used to calling you babe. I couldn't help it. Besides, you told me your marriage has been dead for years. You told me you were going to divorce her and marry me."
Keep your voice down.
William hissed. "Why should I? You said she didn't know anything. You said you two have been sleeping in separate bedrooms for 2 years. You said Margaret kicked the heavy glass door open." The crash echoed down the entire corridor. William and Samantha spun around simultaneously. The looks on their faces were identical.
Sheer,
unadulterated terror, as if they'd just seen a ghost. Mom, William squeaked out. Margaret walked into the room. Every step was deliberate and heavy. The click of her heels sounded like a judge's gavel coming down. Samantha instinctively took a step back, her eyes darting toward the exit. Margaret stopped right in front of her, looked her up and down slowly, and then let out a cold, freezing laugh. "So you're the famous Samantha Woods." Samantha bit her lip and forced herself to stand tall. "Good afternoon, Margaret." "Yes, I'm the VP of Marketing." "VP of Marketing?" Margaret nodded slowly.
good.
"Very good. Tell me, what's your exact compensation package here?" Samantha was taken aback. She clearly hadn't anticipated the question. That is confidential company information."
Confidential?
Margaret scoffed. "My daughter-in-law knows down to the last penny exactly how much money flows in and out of my son's company, and you're standing here talking to me about confidentiality." Samantha turned a shade paler. Margaret turned to William. He was in full panic mode, standing frozen, his knees visibly shaking. "Will, get over here," Margaret ordered. William approached like a puppet on strings. He kept his head down, not daring to meet his mother's
Eyes.
"Look at me," she commanded. He slowly raised his head. His eyes were red. Margaret pulled her hand back and slapped him across the face. The smack was so loud the echo hung in the empty boardroom. William clutched his cheek. Tears finally spilled over his eyelashes. "Mom, do not call me Mom." Margaret's voice was like a Chicago winter wind. "I do not have a son who is this shameless. Katie spent 20 years raising your children, keeping your home, taking care of me when I was sick. And what do? You find some cheap trash on the side. Margaret, you have no right to speak to me like that." Samantha flared up in dignity, breaking through. Her fear. "William and I are in love, and shut your mouth." Margaret whipped her head around. Her glare was lethal. "I am speaking to my son. Who gave you the floor? Who do you think you are to interrupt our family?" Samantha was dressed down so brutally her face cycled through red and white. Her lips trembled. She was speechless. Margaret turned back to William. "I'm asking you a direct question. How long have you been with this woman?" William opened his mouth. His voice was like dry sandpaper. 2 years. Margaret's brow furrowed so deeply it formed a harsh line. 2 years ago, Katie had major surgery to remove uterine fibroids, and you were out playing house with this woman. My eyes instantly filled with tears. The surgery 2 years ago. I walked into the operating room alone and woke up alone. William had told me the company was going through a critical acquisition and he couldn't leave the office. He showed up for 30 minutes that evening and left. Turns out he wasn't busy with corporate strategy. He was busy with her. William suddenly collapsed to his knees. He knelt on the expensive rug, openly, sobbing tears and snot smearing his face. Mom, I messed up. I swear I messed up so badly. Please forgive me just this once. Margaret looked down at him. Her eyes held pain, deep disappointment, but mostly an unprecedented, terrifying resolve. You don't beg me for forgiveness, she said coldly. You beg Katie. William turned on his knees and actually crawled a few feet toward me. Kate, I was wrong. I beg you, please forgive me. I stood perfectly still. I looked down at the man, clutching my ankles, weeping into my designer shoes. 20 years, 2 decades of marriage, 2 beautiful kids, a home we built together. He blew it all up for nothing.
Will.
I looked at the top of his head. My voice was so calm it surprised even me. Stand up. The floor is cold. He froze, looking up at me, a pathetic glimmer of hope lighting up his wet eyes. You forgive me. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled my phone from my purse, opened the text message from Samantha, and handed it to Margaret. Mom, read this. Margaret took the phone. As she read the message, her expression shifted entirely. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something far more dangerous. It was the absolute chilling calm that follows total disillusionment. She handed the phone back to me, looked at her weeping son on the floor, then at Samantha, who was pale as a ghost trying to maintain her composure, and finally, she looked at me. Katie, what do you want to do? She asked. I put my phone away. I looked at William blubbering like a toddler, then at Samantha, standing in the corner. Slowly, the corners of my lips curled into a smile. Mom, first I want to go home. To whose home? To our home, I said. The house that Will and I built brick by brick. Why on earth should I surrender it to anyone else? William's eyes lit up. Kate, but I cut him off sharply starting today. You will not be returning to that house. His hopeful smile died on his face. Furthermore, I said, turning my gaze to Samantha. Samantha, you said you two have true love. If that's the case, it needs to be tested. Starting tomorrow, I will be coming into this office every single
day.
It's about time I learned how to help run my husband's company. Samantha's face went completely bloodless. Margaret looked at me with undisguised approval. William slumped onto the floor like a sack of potatoes. I took Margaret's arm, and together we walked out of the conference room without looking back. Behind us, William let out a gut-wrenching wail. Kate, please listen to me. Let me explain explanations. I'd listened to them for 20 years. I was done. That evening, Margaret and I had a quiet dinner at my home in the suburbs. The kids, Ryan and Haley, were away at college in Boston, so it was just the 2 of us. The housekeeper had prepared a feast-pot roast mashed potatoes, a Caesar salad, and roasted salmon. All of Margaret's favorites. She ate half a bowl of soup, put down her spoon, and looked at me hesitantly. Mom, eat some more. I placed a piece of salmon on her plate. Katie. Margaret put down her fork and looked at me dead seriously. Have you made your decision? I knew exactly what she was asking. I have, I replied. I am not getting a divorce. Margaret's eyebrows furrowed slightly. You want to just endure this, not endure? I set my own fork down and met her eyes. Mom, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not staying married because I feel sorry for Will. I'm doing it because I refuse to let the kids come from a broken home right now. Ryan is a junior. Haley is a sophomore. This is the most critical time in their academic lives. I cannot have them distracted by a messy public divorce. Margaret was silent for a moment. And what about Will and that woman? I will deal with that, I said quietly. Just not right this second. Margaret's expression grew complex. She had lived a long, hard life and seen the worst of corporate and family warfare. She understood exactly what my words implied. I will deal with that. Katie. Margaret suddenly reached out and squeezed my hand. You've been in our family for 20 years. I have never viewed you as an outsider. Whatever you decide to do, I am in your corner. My eyes stung, but Margaret's voice remained low and absolute. If the day comes when you decide you are done with him, you tell me. I will handle him myself. This house, the company, equity, everything, that is rightfully yours. You will get every last cent. I gripped her hand tightly and nodded. That night, William called countless times. I didn't answer.
Once.
He sent a barrage of texts. Kate, I was so wrong. If you don't answer, I'll sleep on the porch all night. Then, I am begging you for 20 years of marriage.
Give me one more chance.
And finally, are you really going to do this to me? I ignored them all. Around 1 o'clock a.m., I heard the crunch of tires on the driveway. Looking out the window, I saw his SUV. He was sitting inside with the window rolled down, chain smoking.
I
didn't go downstairs. I stood by the second-floor bedroom window for a long time, watching the cherry of a cigarette flare and fade in the dark, like an animal pacing in a cage. 20 years. I suddenly remembered when we were newly married. He used to drive me to the grocery store in his beat-up old Honda Civic. I would hold his hand over the center console, the wind rushing through the cracked windows, and he'd look at me and smile, saying, "Katie, I'm going to love you for the rest of my life." The rest of my life. Beautiful words. Too bad they expired after 18 years. The last 2 he gave to someone else. The next morning when I woke up, the SUV was gone. The housekeeper mentioned he had driven off before dawn. After breakfast, I put on a sharp designer pantsuit, applied light but flawless makeup, pulled my hair into a sleek bun, and looked in the mirror. 42 years old, fit well maintained, barely a wrinkle. I might not compete in a room full of 20-somethings, but against women my own age, I held my ground with absolute certainty. Samantha was 4 years younger than me. Neither in looks nor in class did she have the upper hand. Her only advantage was that she was the mistress. Home-cooked food, no matter how exquisite, always loses to the thrill of the forbidden apple. I grabbed my keys and headed out. Today was my first day working at the company. I appointed myself as the Executive Vice President of Operations. This title required zero approval because William and I built this company together. 20 years ago, William was a lowly sales rep making $35,000 a year. I was an accountant making $28,000. We counted every penny saved for 3 years to buy a tiny starter condo on the outskirts of the city. Then his father died, leaving behind a nearly bankrupt building materials supplier. William quit his job to try and salvage it. I drained our savings, borrowed $50,000 from my parents, and threw it all into keeping the business afloat. Back then, I worked my day job, did the company's books at night, and worked in the warehouse on weekends. At my most exhausted 8 months pregnant, I was lifting sample boxes. I almost went into premature labor. Margaret cried and begged me to stop. I told her, "Mom, it's fine. I'm young. I can handle it." That little warehouse grew into a mid-sized corporate player, pulling in $20 million in annual revenue. My blood, sweat, and tears were in every single dollar of that money. Who the hell was Samantha Woods?
just a passerby trying
To harvest the orchard I had spent 20 years planting. I pulled up to the corporate office. The receptionist's face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions when she saw me. Tension, fear, curiosity, and a tiny drop of pity. "Good morning, Catherine." "Good morning." I smiled warmly. "Could you please inform all department heads that there will be a mandatory all-hands meeting in the main conference room at 10 a.m. I have an announcement to make." Right away, I stepped into the elevator and hit the button for the executive floor. In the mirrored walls, I saw my own reflection. Calm, confident, a slight smile on my lips. No one knew I hadn't slept a wink last night. No one knew I had cried in the dark. From today on, I don't cry. From today on, they cry. The doors opened on the 12th floor, and I saw Samantha. She was standing at the end of the hallway talking to a junior staffer. When she saw me, her fake corporate smile froze. I walked straight toward her. My heels clicked with military precision. "Samantha, good morning." I greeted her cheerfully. "Good morning, Catherine," she replied stiffly, avoiding eye contact. "You look a little rough around the edges. Didn't sleep well?" I asked with exaggerated concern. She forced a tight smile. "I'm fine, just a heavy workload. Work is important, but you must take care of your health," I said. "By the way, Samantha, are you married?" Her face shifted.
I'm divorced. Oh, what?
"A shame," I sighed. "An outstanding career woman like you divorced. Let me guess the husband was at fault." The corner of her mouth twitched. She didn't answer. I chuckled, didn't press the issue, and walked straight toward the CEO's office. I pushed the door open to find William sitting at his massive desk, his head buried in his hands, looking completely wrecked. Hearing the door, his head snapped up. Seeing me, he jumped out of his leather chair like he'd been electrocuted. "Kate, good morning." I walked in, tossed my bag onto the leather sofa, and looked around.
I
Had designed this office myself. I picked the art on the walls. I brought the souvenirs on his desk back from our family vacations. I even fought with the interior designers 3 times over the exact shade of the window treatments. Everything in here had my fingerprints on it. But now there were foreign objects. On the credenza sat a crystal frame with a photo of William and Samantha smiling on a beach. On the windowsill was a potted orchid. William hated plants. He always said they attracted bugs. Draped over the arm of the sofa was a woman's silk scarf. I took inventory of these items, and with each one, my heart grew colder. It wasn't sadness. It was ice. Bone-deep freezing ice. William hovered behind me like a guilty child, trying to explain a broken vase. "Kate, that photo. It was from a corporate retreat. The whole team was there."
The
Whole team. I picked up the frame. "Funny how it's just the two of you in the shot." He opened his mouth but couldn't formulate an excuse. I set the frame down, picked up the silk scarf, and brought it to my nose. Expensive French perfume, the exact scent Samantha was wearing in the hallway.
Will.
I carefully folded the scarf and set it on his desk. "This office needs a redesign." I turned to face him. "Starting today, I will be working here as Executive VP. Have facilities clear out the office next door for me." William stared at me. It took a few seconds for the words to penetrate his panic. "You're going to work here. Is there a problem?" I smiled sharply. "I am the largest individual shareholder. My presence here is standard corporate protocol." "No, that's not what I meant." He scrambled. "It's just you aren't really up to speed on the daily operations." "I'm not up to speed." I laughed out loud. "William, I did the accounting for this company from day one. I vetted our first suppliers out of the back of my car. The current CFO is my college roommate. And you're telling me I'm not up to speed?" His face drained of color. I took a step closer, staring dead into his eyes. "Do you just not want me here because you're terrified I'll find something I'm not supposed to see?" His pupils contracted. His lips trembled, but no sound came out. I patted his cheek and walked out of the office. In the hallway, Samantha was still hovering near the water, cooler. Seeing me emerge, she looked like a deer in headlights.
Samantha.
I smiled pleasantly. "Don't forget all. Hands meeting at 10 o'clock. I walked past her toward the break room. Behind me, I heard her hushed, urgent voice. "Catherine, I want to speak with you." I stopped but didn't turn around. "About what?" "About William." I turned slowly. Her expression had changed. The morning awkwardness and guilt were gone, replaced by a hardened resolve. Her chin was tilted up. A challenge. "All right," I smiled. "What do you want to talk about?" "It's a bit public out here. Let's step into the break room. It's quiet." I led the way. Samantha followed and closed the door behind us. It was a small room, just a bistro table and 2 chairs. I sat down. She sat opposite me as if we were negotiating a merger.
Catherine.
Samantha took a deep breath, visibly gathering her courage. "I know you're hurting, but I hope you can hear me out calmly." "I am perfectly calm," I said.
Speak.
William and I have been together for 2 years. Her voice was quiet, but incredibly deliberate. We've been through a lot. He told me that whatever feelings you two had died a long time ago, that you've been sleeping in separate bedrooms for 2 years, that your marriage is nothing but a legal formality. I looked at her saying nothing. I know it's technically wrong. She pushed on. But you can't control the heart. I don't want a war with you. I just want you to do the right thing and let him go. Let him go. I repeated the words. They sounded absurd in my mouth.
Yes.
Her eyes glistened. I love him and he loves me. There is nothing left between you two. Why can't we just handle this like adults and separate amicably? I reached over, poured a cup of water from the carafe, took a slow sip, and set the glass down. Samantha, let me ask you a few questions. Go ahead. This idea that our feelings for each other died. He told you that?
Yes.
That we sleep in separate bedrooms for 2 years. He told you that too?
Yes.
What else did he
Tell you?
that his wife is cold, doesn't understand him? That going home to her feels like going to a prison? Samantha froze. Clearly, I had hit the nail perfectly on the head. I chuckled softly. Samantha, let me give you a reality check. My husband and I slept in separate bedrooms 2 years ago because I had a major abdominal surgery, and my doctors mandated a strict 3-month recovery period with no physical intimacy. When the recovery period ended, he didn't want to move back in. He said his snoring was keeping me awake and he wanted me to rest. I thought he was being a considerate husband. Now I realize he just had a new toy on the side, and sleeping next to me was inconvenient for his late-night texting. Her face lost a shade of color, and another thing. I leaned forward, looking down my nose at her. You claim our feelings are dead. Then tell me, why did he take you to Boca Raton to visit my mother-in-law for Christmas this year? Her face hardened.
He didn't.
No, he didn't. I smirked. He took me and the kids to Florida. We spent 5 days at Margaret's condo. We went to church together. We ate seafood at the country club. The whole happy family. If our marriage is so dead, why parade me around his family? Her lips started to tremble. And look at this. I pulled out my phone and swiped my photo album. This is from his birthday dinner last month at a steakhouse. He has his arm wrapped completely around my waist. Look how genuinely happy he's smiling. Tears began to pool in her eyes. I put my phone away. Samantha, I'm not telling you this to be cruel. I'm telling you this so you understand the game you're playing. 9 out of 10 things a cheating man tells his mistress is a calculated lie. He tells you his wife is terrible, so you feel special. So, you feel like you're the only one who truly understands his tortured soul. But the reality is he goes home, he hugs his wife, and he plays the perfect family man on holidays. To him, you are an escape, a vacation.
You are not a promotion.
Samantha covered her mouth with her hands. Her shoulders shook with suppressed sobs. You say you have true love, I sighed mockingly. Then tell me, why is he absolutely terrified to introduce you to his mother? Why is he terrified his kids will find out? Why is he desperate to keep you a secret from literally everyone who matters? He can't afford the humiliation. What makes you think I'm not worthy? Samantha suddenly snapped her head up. Her eyes were bloodshot. Because I am his legal wife, I stated, enunciating every syllable, like a judge reading a sentence. Because I gave birth to his children. Because I took care of his mother for 20 years. Because I was standing beside him when he was eating ramen and drowning in debt.
And you?
You showed up when his bank accounts got fat. What gives you the right to even sit at the same table as me? Her face burned scarlet. Say whatever you want, she choked out. I am not giving him up. I looked at her, and suddenly I didn't feel angry. I just felt an overwhelming bone, deep exhaustion. Then, try your best, I whispered. I stood up and walked out of the break room. In the hallway, a few employees were trying to subtly eavesdrop. Seeing me, they scattered like roaches. I ignored them and walked directly to the conference room. At 10 a.m., the meeting started. The department heads filed in each one. freezing for a split second when they saw me sitting at the head of the table before quickly taking their seats and staring at their laptops. William sat next to me, his face the color of wet cement. Samantha walked in last. Her eyes were slightly puffy, but she had aggressively retouched her makeup. I sat to William's right. "Good morning, everyone." I cleared my throat. Effective immediately, I am assuming the role of Executive Vice President of Operations. All financial reports, HR decisions, and key strategic initiatives will now require my direct sign-off. Dead silence. Everyone kept their heads down, terrified to make eye contact with me or William. William looked nauseous, but he kept his mouth shut. Samantha sat at the far end of the table, her face unreadable. One more thing. I opened a leather portfolio. I am initiating a comprehensive internal audit of the
Company. Finance. Procurement. HR.
We are opening the books on every single department. William's head snapped up. Kate, what is the point of that? What's the problem? I met his gaze coolly. This company has grown exponentially, and we haven't done a top-to-bottom audit in
Years.
We need to clean house. He opened his mouth, but couldn't find a counterargument. Samantha's face had suddenly turned a chalky white. I swept my gaze across the room. It's decided. Meeting adjourned. The first week of my tenure felt like dropping a great white shark into a koi pond. On day one, I ordered the finance department to bring me every ledger from the last 3 years. The CFO, my old college roommate, Amanda, looked at me with a pained, complex expression, but silently instructed her team to deliver the boxes. On day two, I requested all executive personnel files from HR. When I got to Samantha's, I read it with intense scrutiny. Samantha Woods, born 1986, New York native, NYU Stern graduate. Divorced, no children. Previous employment, OmniCorp, Deputy Director of Marketing. Base salary, $150,000. At our company, her starting salary as VP of Marketing was $250,000, a full $100,000 above market rate. I dialed the head of HR, who authorized Miss Wood's compensation package. The CEO personally signed off on it, was the hesitant reply. I hung up and scoffed, William playing the big spender. Day 3 was dedicated to one-on-ones with department heads. They entered my temporary office like they were walking into an interrogation room. I didn't press them too hard, just discussed workflow. At the end of every meeting, I casually asked, "How are you finding working with Samantha?" Most gave safe diplomatic answers. Only Tyler, a sharp young guy from procurement, hesitated. Catherine, I don't know if I should say anything, but shortly after Samantha joined, we signed a massive supply contract with a vendor called Horizon Imports. $3,200,000. I ran a background check on them. They were incorporated barely 6 months ago. Their registered capital is basically nothing, and their corporate address is a residential apartment building in Queens. I brought this up to Samantha. She told me the CEO personally vetted them and that I should mind my own business. I nodded slowly. I see. Don't mention this to anyone else. I'll look into it. When Tyler left, I wrote Horizon Imports on a legal pad and circled it twice in red ink.
On day
4, Aunt Brenda called Katie. I got the file.
Samantha Woods, NY Grad.
Married in 2017, divorced in 2021. Her ex-husband is a guy named Jason Collins. He ran an import-export business in New York dealing in construction materials. Construction materials. My heart skipped a beat. Yeah, Collins Trade Group. It went bankrupt last year. He left a mountain of debt and vanished. Samantha divorced him right after. I closed my eyes. The gears were spinning at a terrifying speed. Imported materials. Horizon Imports. $3,200,000 contract. Brenda, did they keep any financial ties after the divorce? Funny. You should ask. I dug into Horizon Imports. It's registered to Samantha's mother, Barbara Woods. The corporate address is Barbara's apartment in Queens. The LLC was formed late last year. And guess what? They just landed A. Massive $3,200,000 contract with a Chicago construction supplier. My husband's company I finished for her. We both sat in silence. Katie Brenda's voice dropped an octave. This isn't just an affair. This woman didn't just move to Chicago to steal your husband. There is a whole lot more going on here. I hung up and sat still, tapping my manicured nails against the desk. Horizon Imports, $3,200,000. Ex-husband bankrupt. Mother as a shell. The picture was coming into brutal focus. I called Tyler from procurement back in. Tyler, do you have the original contract for Horizon Imports? Yes, I kept a photocopy in my personal files. 10 minutes later, the folder was on my desk. Standard vendor agreement. Client Apex Building Supplies. Vendor Horizon Imports. Total value $3,200,000. Delivery timeline 3 months. On the signature line for the client was William's sprawling signature. On the vendor line was the signature of Barbara
Woods.
I stared at that name for a long time, then took a high-res photo of the document with my phone. On day 5, I flew out of O'Hare to LaGuardia without telling a soul. During the flight, I realized that some investigations once started cannot be stopped. It's like opening Pandora's box. But I had no
Choice.
If Samantha just wanted to steal my husband, that was a messy domestic dispute. But if she came to defraud the company I built, that was a war.
The
Registered address for Horizon Imports was a faded rent-controlled brick building in Queens. I knocked on the door of apartment 4B for a full minute before an older woman cracked it open, leaving the chain on.
Who are you? Hi.
Are you Barbara Woods? I am. What do you want? I'm a colleague of your daughter, Samantha. I flew in from Chicago for a conference, and she asked me to drop something off for you. The woman's face softened, and she unlatched the door. Is Sammy okay? She's doing great. I pulled the photocopy of the contract from my briefcase. Barbara, your signature is on this vendor agreement. Do you recall signing it? The older woman took the paper, adjusting her reading glasses. Total confusion washed over her face. I don't remember this. Sammy brought over a stack of tax papers a few months ago and told me to sign them. I just signed where she pointed. Did she mention she was making you the CEO of an import company? A company? Sammy owns a company. She just told me it was. Bureaucratic red tape. Looking into her utterly clueless eyes, I had all the confirmation I needed. Samantha used her mother to set up a shell LLC and then secured a $3,200,000 contract from the very company she worked for. The cash left our corporate accounts and went straight into her mother's fake business. Where it went after that was anyone's guess. No wonder she was so arrogant in the break room. She wasn't just relying on my husband's affection. She thought she had him completely trapped in a fraud scheme. By the time I landed back in Chicago, it
Was dark.
my phone showed over a dozen missed calls, mostly from William. I didn't call back. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw his SUV idling by the curb. He jumped out and ran to my window before I even put the car in park.
Kate.
Where have you been? I've been calling you all day. I rolled down the window. In just a week, he had lost weight. He looked haggard, sporting a graying 5 o'clock shadow. I went to New York, I said evenly. New York? Why? To pay Samantha's mother a visit. William's face instantly drained of all blood, turning the color of ash. He opened and closed his mouth, but his vocal cords completely failed him. Seeing his visceral reaction, the last piece clicked into place. He knew Samantha registered the company in her mother's name. He knew the $3,200,000 contract was a sham. He wasn't on it. Well, I said, my voice dangerously soft. $3.2 million is federal wire fraud territory. When this blows up, how much time do you think you'll serve? His knees buckled. He actually slumped against the door of my Mercedes.
Kate, let me explain.
I don't want an explanation. I want a number. How did you two split the $3.2 million? His entire body shuddered, as if I'd physically struck him.
Kate, what are you saying?
I didn't take a dime of that money. Drop the act. I sneered. Horizon Imports, her mother's shell company. You personally signed the authorization. The money wired out. It had to go somewhere. How much did you pocket? William looked like a dead man walking. Kate, I swear to God, I didn't know. I had no idea it was a shell company.
You didn't know. I
Let out a dry, venomous laugh. Your signature is on the dotted line. You're telling me she brought you a contract for a brand new supplier promising. Price is 15% below market rate, and you just signed it?
Yes.
William, you've been in this industry for 20 years. You didn't vet the supplier. You didn't run a Dun and Bradstreet report. You just took your mistress's word for it and stroked a check for $3 million.
Tears
Began streaming down his face. Kate, I swear to you, I didn't know. I thought it was illegitimate. Save it. I rolled the window up and put the car in drive. Kate, please don't drive away. He pounded on the reinforced glass. You have to listen to me. I ignored him, hitting the garage door opener and pulling inside. I cut the engine, sat in the dark garage, and pressed my hands to my temples. $3,200,000. That was clean money. Money we bled for, and it was routed through a fake LLC to pay off the massive debts of her deadbeat ex-husband. I didn't have the proof yet, but I knew it in my bones. My phone buzzed. A text from Samantha. Catherine, I heard you went to Queens to harass my mother. Do whatever you want me, but leave her out of this. She knows nothing. I stared at the screen, my thumbs flying over the keyboard. Samantha, I'll tell you the same thing. Do whatever you want with William, but if you touch my company's money, I will bury you. Every single penny of that $3,200,000 is coming back to me. I hit send, powered the phone off, went inside, took a scalding shower, and got into bed. I stared at the ceiling for hours. Everything began 2 years ago.
2
years ago, William started taking excessive business trips. 2 years ago, he started complaining that my cooking was too salty, that my clothes were too conservative, that my voice was too loud. 2 years ago, he manufactured excuses to sleep in the guest room. I thought the stress of scaling the business was getting to him. I made him organic meals, bought him bespoke suits, and tiptoed around the house to give him peace. Meanwhile, he was playing sugar daddy to a corporate grifter. I suddenly laughed. Not a bitter laugh, but a genuine echoing laugh at my own profound stupidity. 20 years of loyalty reduced to a bad cliche. At dawn, I put on my running gear and jogged through the neighborhood park. Elderly couples waved at me. Nobody knew the calm, smiling woman jogging past them had just discovered her husband, and his mistress had embezzled millions from her. I went home and ate breakfast. The housekeeper whispered that William had sat in his car by the curb all night again before driving off. I just nodded.
My phone rang.
Margaret.
Katie.
I'm flying back to Chicago this afternoon. Mom, why? You just went back to Florida. Will called me last night. He was hysterical. He said you're trying to send him to federal prison. What the hell is going on? I took a deep breath. Mom, let me pick you up from O'Hare. I'll explain everything. I lost my appetite. William had run to Mommy, playing the victim.
Fine.
You want to play dirty? Let's play. At 9 a.m., I walked into the office. The tension was suffocating. Amanda, the CFO, practically sprinted into my office and locked the door behind her. Kate, she looked panicked. Samantha submitted her resignation this morning and will refuse to sign it. Furthermore, he announced at the morning stand-up that someone is spreading malicious rumors that Samantha is completely innocent and anyone caught gossiping will be fired on the spot. I smirked. What else did he say? Amanda lowered her voice. He said, "You're emotional that you don't understand how corporate procurement works and that he's just letting you throw a tantrum until you calm down." Amanda, how exactly was the $3,200,000 wired to Horizon Imports? Amanda looked sick. That's why I'm here. The wire transfer only has Will's digital authorization. Standard dual control. Protocols were bypassed. The money left on his sole executive order. So the accounting department flagged it, and he overrode them. Yes, Samantha told us it. was a highly confidential vendor agreement the CEO was managing personally. I confronted Will about it. He told me to stay in my lane. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. Kate, I'm so sorry. I should have told you. You were doing your job under a hostile CEO. It's not your fault. I need you to do something for me right now. Print out the wire logs, the override, authorizations, everything related to that payment. Leave the originals. Bring me the copies. Amanda nodded frantically and left. I called Aunt Brenda. Brenda, I need you to locate Jason Collins, the ex-husband. Find out exactly who he owed money to and how much. I need to trace where my $3,200,000 went. That takes time, Katie. You have 3 days. At 2 p.m., I picked Margaret up at
The airport.
She wore a severe eggplant-colored suit. I didn't say a word. I just handed her a thick manila folder as soon as she got in the passenger seat. It contained everything. Horizon Imports' corporate registration, the fraudulent contract, the wire transfer override logs, Samantha's HR file, and Brenda's preliminary background check. Margaret put on her reading glasses and flipped through the pages. Her expression morphed from severe to absolute terrifying fury. $3,200,000. She rasped. This little set up a shell company and stole $3,200,000. And Will signed off on it. She closed her eyes, taking a ragged breath. When she opened them, they were devoid of any maternal warmth. Katie, what are you doing about this? Mom, I need to know one thing for certain. Did Samantha manipulate him into this? Or was Will an active co-conspirator? And if he was a co-conspirator, Margaret looked me dead in the eye. Then it's not an affair. It's embezzlement and wire fraud. And people go to federal prison for that. Margaret sank back against the leather seat. She looked suddenly very old. Katie, do what you have to do. I am on your side. If my son chose to become a criminal, he chose his own fate.
Tears
pricked my eyes. This fierce elderly woman was choosing justice over protecting her own flesh and blood.
Thank you, Mom. Don't thank me.
You're my daughter. When I returned to the office, I found a handwritten note on my desk. Samantha was inviting me for coffee at the upscale cafe in the lobby at 7 p.m. I tossed the note in the trash and called William. Will 7 o'clock at the cafe. Downstairs. Samantha invited me. You need to be there. Silence on the line. Kate, what are you doing? Having coffee. What are you scared? I'm not scared. I'll be there. At 7 p.m., I walked into the cafe. Samantha was already seated at a corner booth.
What can I order you?
She asked smoothly. Nothing. I don't drink coffee paid for with stolen money, I said, sliding into the booth.
Her eye twitched.
Catherine, what else have you dug up? Oh, plenty. I slid a piece of paper across the table. Samantha Woods divorced Jason Collins in 2021. His business goes under. He flees from his creditors. Shortly after you set up an LLC in your mother's name and miraculously land a $3,200,000 contract with my husband's company. Am I getting warm? Her face was chalk. What? What do you want? That's my question. Did you come here to sleep with my husband or to rob my company? Right on cue. William rushed up to the table. His face was twisted in anger. He grabbed Samantha's arm. Sam, you lied to me. You told Horizon Imports belonged to a guy you went to grad school with. Samantha violently yanked her arm out of his grasp. I lied to you. Don't act so holy. William, did you forget the $1,200,000 you loaned me last year? I whipped my head toward William. He shrank back as if he'd been slapped. You're lying. I never gave you money. On the 18th of last month, you wired $1,200,000 to my personal account from the company's reserve fund. You said you wanted to help me out. Did you forget? Should I pull up the bank statements right here? Samantha yelled. Patrons in the cafe were openly staring now. William was hyperventilating, completely speechless. I stood up slowly. So you took $3,200,000 through a fake contract, and you wired her another $1,200,000 directly. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I grabbed my purse. There is nothing left to discuss. Tomorrow morning, I'm coming to the office with legal counsel. Kate, William grabbed my wrist. You can't do this. This company is our life's work. Our life's work. I shoved his hand off me in disgust. William, you having a midlife crisis and sleeping with a grifter is one thing, but conspiring to embezzle millions of dollars from the company I built. I will end you. I turned and walked out, leaving the two of them screaming at each other in the middle of the cafe. The cool night air hit my face. Tomorrow the guillotine was dropping. The next morning, I walked into the corporate boardroom with Charles Mitchell, the most ruthless corporate litigator in Chicago. Margaret had recommended him. William was already at the head of the table, flanked by the executive team. Samantha was sitting as far back as possible. Good morning, I said, taking the seat to William's right. Mr. Mitchell stood behind me. I've called this meeting to announce a restructuring effective immediately. I am assuming the role of Chief Executive Officer. William is stepping down to an advisory role with zero operational or financial authority. The room erupted. Kate, you can't just do that. William choked out.
Why not?
I looked at him coldly. I hold 45% of the voting shares. You hold 40. Your mother holds 15. As the majority shareholder block, I am restructuring the SOIT. Mr. Mitchell stepped forward, placing a thick binder on the table. Under Illinois corporate law, the majority shareholder block has the absolute right to convene a board vote and replace executive officers. Catherine's actions are legally binding. William slumped in his chair. Secondly, I continued, regarding the $3,200,000 contract with Horizon Imports. We have uncovered massive irregularities. Horizon Imports is a shell company. I have instructed Mr. Mitchell to forward our findings to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office for wire fraud. Samantha jumped up so fast her chair tipped over. Catherine, you are insane. I looked at her with dead eyes. Miss Woods, or should I say Mrs. Collins, where exactly did the $3,200,000 go? You don't have any proof? She shrieked.
No, Ismirka.
I held up the documents. The LLC registration with your mother's name, the contract with your signature and Williams, the bypassed wire logs, and my personal favorite, the bankruptcy filings of your ex-husband, showing over $2 million in outstanding debts. How much of our money went to pay off the mob guys your ex-husband was hiding from? Samantha collapsed back into her chair, sobbing hysterically into her hands. Kate, William whispered, looking absolutely destroyed. I swear I didn't know. You didn't know she was defrauding us. William, you authorized the wire transfer. And what about the $1,200,000 you wired directly into her personal account? Were you paying off her debts, or were you getting a kickback? Samantha suddenly looked up, her makeup running down her face like black tears.
Don't play the saint, Catherine.
You think your precious husband was just a victim. He promised to marry me, and while he was stringing me along, he was pulling money out of the company to cover his own family's garbage. You people are all the same, Sam. Shut up. William roared. Make me. She screamed back. Tell her about the money you've been siphoning off to save your brother's ass. The boardroom was dead silent. I stared at William, my blood running cold. Enough, I said softly, but the sheer authority in my voice made the room freeze. I don't care about your lover's quarrel. Samantha, you are fired. For cause. Our legal department is filing a civil suit against you for fraud, and we are cooperating with federal authorities. I suggest you get a very good lawyer. I packed my briefcase. William, I will see you at the house. I walked out, ignoring Samantha's wailing. In the elevator, Mr. Mitchell looked at me. Catherine, what's our next move? Draft the divorce papers. I want him ruined. While driving home, I got a text from William. Kate, I am begging you.
20
years, please. I replied, 20 years, and you stole from me. You're dead to me. I pulled over by Lake Michigan and finally
cried.
Not out of grief, out of pure toxic rage that had finally found an outlet. When I was done, I wiped my face, reapplied my lipstick, and drove home. I was no longer the beautiful Mrs.
Woods.
I was Catherine, and I was going to scorch the earth. When I got home, Margaret was on the patio, looking deeply distressed while on the phone. "Mom, what's wrong?" "It's Kevin," she said, referring to Will's younger brother. "Will called him crying, saying you were going to send him to prison." "Mom, I'm not trying to send him to prison. I just want my money back." Margaret looked at me. "Are you really divorcing him, Mom? If I divorce him, will you blame me?" She held my hand tightly. "You've been a daughter to me for 20 years. If Will hadn't crossed the line, you wouldn't be doing this. I support you." But her voice hardened. "You need to find out exactly what Samantha meant. If Will took more money, you need to know." That night, I texted Aunt Brenda. "Brenda, I need a forensic sweep of William's personal and corporate accounts for the last 24 months. Now, 3 days later, Brenda came to my house personally. She looked grim. "Katie, it's bad." I opened the file she handed me. Bank statements. March of last year. $800,000 wired to Collins Trade Group, the ex-husband's company. May $1,200,000 wired to Collins Trade Group. August, $500,000 to Samantha personally. October, $1 million to Samantha. January, $700,000 to Samantha. Total $4,200,000. But I kept turning the pages. November, $2 million wired to John, my brother. "What is this?" I gasped. "Your brother John's startup failed last year," Brenda said softly. "He came to Will for a bailout. Will wired him $2 million from corporate reserves without telling you." I felt sick. Will played the generous hero to my family using my company's money. Keep reading. Brenda said June $3 million to Keystone Construction. September $2,500,000 to Keystone. February $4 million to Keystone. Keystone Construction was Will's brother Kevin's company. Will wired $9,500,000 to his brother's failing company under the guise of corporate investments. Brenda explained Kevin is drowning in debt. Will was keeping him afloat with your cash. I dropped the file. $4,200,000 to his mistress. $2 million to my brother. $9,500,000 to his brother. Over $15 million embezzled in 2 years. This wasn't just an affair. This was two brothers conspiring to bleed my company dry while the mistress ran her own side scam. I called William. "Well, why haven't we seen any ROI on the $9,500,000 investment in Keystone Construction?" Dead silence. "Kate, Kevin is having a hard time. He said he'd pay us back." "Are you running a charity?" "William, and $2 million to my brother?" "Why didn't you tell me? I just wanted to help your family." "You helped my family with my corporate funds. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. You, me, Kevin, and your mother.
We are settling this."
"Kate, don't drag Mom into this. You should have thought about her heart before you stole $15 million.
I
hung up. The next day in the boardroom, Kevin sat looking arrogant in a designer polo shirt. William looked like a ghost. Margaret sat at the head of the table.
Kevin.
Margaret started. "How is Keystone doing?" "Great, Mom. We just landed a big municipal contract." "Then why hasn't Apex Building Supplies seen a dime of returns on the $9,500,000 Will invested in you?" Kevin's smile vanished. "Mom, I told Will to give me
time."
I dropped a financial analysis on the table. "Kevin, your debt-to-asset ratio is 80%. You are functionally insolvent. Where is the $9,500,000? Kevin turned purple. "Catherine, are you spying on me? Answer the question." Margaret slammed her hand on the table. "Did you take $9,500,000 from this company without board approval?" "Mom, I'm your son. You should be helping me, not siding with this outsider."
Kevin pointed at me.
Smack. Margaret backhanded Kevin across the face so hard, his head snapped back. Outsider, Margaret trembled with rage. "Catherine has been bleeding for this family for 20 years. She saved us from bankruptcy, and you call her an outsider. You are a parasite. And you?" She turned on William. "You stole from your own wife to feed his incompetence. Where's the money?" William began to weep again.
"Mom, I'm sorry."
I stepped forward. "Mr. Mitchell, what does the law say?" The lawyer cleared his throat. Transferring corporate funds without board approval to conceal insolvency constitutes corporate fraud. If we report this, both William and Kevin could face federal indictment. Kevin went stark white. Mom, you wouldn't.
Try me.
Margaret hissed. You have 30 days to return the $9,500,000. Sell your house. Sell your cars. Liquidate your assets. If the money isn't in Apex's accounts by the end of the month, I will drive you to the FBI field office myself. She stood up and walked out. The next month was a bloodbath. Aunt Brenda tracked down Jason Collins. He had fled to Costa Rica, but recently sneaked back into Miami. Brenda's contacts cornered him. He sang like a canary. He and Samantha never actually divorced. It was a legal sham to protect their assets. Samantha infiltrated our company specifically to embezzle funds to pay off his debts, using Will as a gullible mark. I met Samantha one last time at a quiet tea room. She looked ruined. Your husband Jason is back in the country, I said, sliding an audio recorder across the table. I played Jason's confession. Samantha buried her face in her hands. I'm giving you two options, I said coldly. One, you liquidate everything you own, pay back the $9,500,000, and disappear forever. Two, I hand this tape to the U.S. attorney, and you and Jason go to federal prison for a decade.
I don't have the full amount, she sobbed.
Jason spent most of it. You have 30 days to figure it out. By the end of the month, Samantha had sold her Manhattan apartment and begged her wealthy relatives for cash. She managed to return about $2,500,000. I let the rest go, not out of mercy, but because I wanted her entirely out of my life forever. Kevin, terrified of his mother, sold off plots of land, construction equipment, and his vacation home. He returned $7 million and signed a legally binding promissory note for the remaining $2,500,000. Margaret took the note, promising to squeeze it out of him penny by penny. I never filed criminal charges against William. Margaret literally got on her knees and begged me, Katie, he is a fool and a traitor, but he is the father of your children. Please don't put him behind bars. Looking at her white hair, I relented, but the price was total surrender. William signed over 25% of his shares to me. I now held 70% of the
company.
Margaret held 15%, and Will was left with a symbolic 15%. He was completely stripped of any power. I also never filed the divorce papers. Margaret pleaded with me to keep the family intact on paper for the sake of Ryan and Haley and to protect the assets from a messy public split. I gave William an ultimatum. He was to move into a downtown condo. He would never set foot in our suburban house again. He would never interfere with the company. Whatever women he entertained on his own time were his business. But if he ever brought an ounce of public shame to my family again, I would destroy him. He agreed to everything. He had no choice. From that day forward, the era of Mrs. Woods was over. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more shocking betrayals, powerful comebacks, and satisfying revenge stories. Until next time, remember, never underestimate someone who stays calm after discovering the truth.